This is Plant-Based Briefing. High-protein diets are popular, but they certainly aren't sustainable. Part 2 by Jessica Scott-Reid at sentientmedia.org. And I'm Marian Erickson, host of this curated content plant-based podcast, where I narrate a variety of articles on plant-based and vegan living with permission in about 10 minutes or less every weekday. And because today's article would have been longer than that, it's a two-parter. I read the first half yesterday, so go back and listen to that first if you haven't already, and then come back here for part 2. And now let's get to today's plant-based briefing. High-protein diets are popular, but they certainly aren't sustainable. Part 2 by Jessica Scott-Reid of Sentient at sentientmedia.org. Health impacts of high-protein diets. North Americans are not protein deficient. In fact, according to data from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, U.S. adults are eating about 20% more protein than they need, though most are not eating enough fiber. Of course, those on high-protein diets consume even more protein, and some experts are warning about the potential health risks. As many high-protein foods are also high in saturated fats, getting too much protein could lead to elevated blood lipids, such as cholesterol and triglycerides, and increase the risk of heart disease. And because eating surplus protein can be hard on the kidneys, high-protein diets also raise the risk of kidney disease in people who are already predisposed to it. A study published last month in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that the carnivore diet in particular creates an optimal environment for the development of kidney stones, reaffirming past findings. Another study published in the Journal of Biological Chemistry in 2024 found that high protein intake, such as on the Paleo diet, led to neurological disorders in mice due to toxin buildup in the liver. Research also shows that eating too much red and processed meats is linked to an increased risk of diabetes and risk of some cancers in humans. That said, high-protein, low-carb diets can work for rapid weight loss. Focusing on protein can feel less restrictive for some people, even when entire other food groups like fruits, vegetables, and grains are restricted or eliminated. That especially was the genius of the Keto diet and Atkins. You can have bacon, you can have steak, you can feel like you're not denying yourself, Bentley says. Of course, you can't eat watermelon. You're denying yourself certain things, but it doesn't feel like it so much because I think meat is a high satiety product. And it has a lot of aroma cues and texture cues and fullness cues. So if you can eat those things, that feels like an indulgence. Bentley says high-protein diets often work for weight loss in the short term because it's calorie reduction because you're cutting out so many categories of food. But she adds that eating mostly or only protein is not likely to be a sustainable diet over time. Perhaps this is why we see the high-protein diet reappearing with new names and slightly new rules every few years. Environmental impacts of high-protein diets. High-protein diets that are heavy on the steak also aren't sustainable when it comes to climate. Diets high in meat, particularly methane-belching ruminants like beef and lamb, have a notably higher climate impact than diets containing more or entirely plant foods. Indeed, a third of global greenhouse gas emissions come from food, with most of those food-related emissions due to meat, especially beef, at current rates of consumption. There are impacts beyond greenhouse gas emissions, too. Animal agriculture is also a leading contributor to deforestation, ocean degradation, land use, freshwater use and pollution, and biodiversity loss. If we want to address greenhouse gas emissions, we need to eat less meat, not more. Accounting for those impacts doesn't even touch the way farmed animals are raised. Even without a massive shift to high-protein diets, an estimated 99% of animals farmed for food in the U.S. are raised in intense confinement on factory farms. The bottom line. Ultimately, Bentley calls eating a diet high in animal foods a luxury that is only affordable, at least in large quantities, to the most affluent populations in the world. Most people are happy to have a diet that's 70% grains and vegetables and fruits, with meat as an accent, meat as a flavoring agent, meat in small amounts and in a variety of ways. Even so, the cycle of high-protein diet trends persists in the West, reshaping itself with new names, but carrying familiar implications on our health, the planet, animals, and our culture, making it clear that the fixation on animal proteins comes at a meaty cost. You just listened to High-Protein Diets Are Popular, but They Certainly Aren't Sustainable, Part 2 by Jessica Scott-Reid of Sentient at sentientmedia.org. And I'm Marian Erickson, your host. I will link some related episodes in the show notes if you're interested. Here are a few about the carnivore diet. 900, how did the carnivore diet become so popular? 899, the carnivore diet, what does the evidence say? And 319, lose 2 pounds in one sitting, taking the myocenic route. That one is about how our ancestors ate huge amounts of fiber. And 959 and 960, how big meat worked to rebrand in 2024 using disinformation. That was one that the author mentioned in this article. And I've done a bazillion on protein, on kidney disease, on so many things mentioned in this article. Wherever you listen, use the search field and put those terms in there, or go to plantbasedbriefing.com episodes and use the search field there, and those will come up. So please share this episode with anyone who might benefit, and thanks for listening.